Welcome to the latest episode of the Construction Insiders podcast, where our host, Jessica Bush, talks with industry experts about new trends, best practices, and how to successfully deliver construction projects in today's market. Whatever your role on a project, we think you'll find these discussions interesting and worth your time.
All right. Well, thank you, Jason. Today we are back to talk about what's going on in the healthcare industry. As everyone can imagine, there's a lot from the project management side to the MEP side that we're going to dive into today, cost management. Everyone wants to know what's going on with healthcare, the buildings, and how we're going to move them forward for our needs as this world tries to move forward. So today we brought in two guests. Our first guest is Zair Sheema. He is one of Cumming's highly skilled leaders from our MEP division. He also specializes in everything related to HVAC, plumbing, fire protections, energy systems, all of that falls under the MEP umbrella. He is also an accomplished project management and cost management professional. So we couldn't think of someone better from our own team to bring into this discussion on healthcare and its systems. In addition, today, we have Gary Hamilton, a Senior Vice President and Healthcare Leader with WSP USA. He is not only a published author, but obviously a well-known thought leader throughout the healthcare industry. And with more than 2 decades of experience, he is someone that we couldn't pass up for this conversation and couldn't think of two better professionals to discuss building systems and all the needs for changes in the healthcare facilities today as we look forward. So without wasting too much more of anyone's time, Zair, I would love to hand it over to you. I know you have lots of questions for Gary lined up, and go for it. I know you've been dying for this.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you, Gary, for taking time out of your schedule for being with us today. I know you were recently named fellow member for American Society of Healthcare Engineers. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Before we jump into our topic, I would like you to talk about your background a little bit, how you got into mechanical engineering and what influenced you later on to specialize in healthcare.
It's funny you say that. Sometimes they say the start should be the end. My dive into healthcare started with a bike accident that I had when I was 18 years old, and having the experience, being in the hospital for 3 months, and doing a surgery, which during that surgery my foot got infected based on the airflow condition within the space. So I experienced the bad side of the healthcare system. So that was my first exposure to healthcare. During that time, I actually was accepted to do civil engineering in Trinidad. So in the hospital, I had a lot of thought process and thinking about whether how the civil engineering is going to affect the healthcare space, because that's something that I need to address. Still went on to do civil engineering. After completing my degree at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad, I decided that I'm going to move to London. When I moved to London, I was intrigued with environmental aspect of civil engineering. So I applied for a position to be an environmental engineer with a company. They hired me as an environmental engineer, and then they came in and say, well, we have some HVAC work for you to do. Didn't have a clue what that means. I've never been exposed to those type of systems, but that's how my career in mechanical engineering started. I worked for a firm who hired me to be an environmental engineer and told me to design HVAC systems. So that's how I started, and that's how it went. I actually went on to do a master's in mechanical engineering, and that's how I cemented my position in my career in mechanical engineering. Healthcare now. The situation is that, as I said, I was intrigued with the environment of care and really figuring out how I could play my role in reducing infection. So that's something that I will always, try to figure out. So the company that I worked for did some healthcare projects. So I asked them to be involved in some of their clinics renovation. That's in London with NHS systems. So I got the introduction to looking at those spaces and really got really got interested in that environment and really the technical aspect of it and how, we could minimize, how we can use airflow to minimize infection within the healthcare space, which affected me in my earlier age, my early years. So that's how I got into it. Fast forward 23 years later, here at WSP, a healthcare leader on the East Coast, and doing a whole lot of project both locally and globally.
I hope all is good with your leg now. Sometimes life has a plan for us, but we're lucky to have you in healthcare. I worked with you on projects, multiple projects, healthcare projects, and I know you're one of the best persons in the industry who really cares about the industry, healthcare. So let's dive into COVID. What are primary COVID mitigation engineering applications that can be considered for existing facilities? It's a concern for everybody these days.
Yeah. And to be honest, the COVID has thrown us a lot of curveballs for us engineering wise, and we were able to pivot really quick and really help many healthcare systems to address how they could quickly adapt and do some simple engineering renovation to meet the requirements of the COVID challenges. We went into many facilities. We facilitate instances where we can convert air system to 100% outside air, and where you don't have the mix of air on. And during the initial surge, we call those the shoulder months, we're able to do that because the airflow outside was the right conditions to have 100% outside air. So we were lucky during the first surge to do that. So many healthcare systems, we've gone in and figure out how we can modify their air handling unit to be 100% outside air. Some they couldn't. Some it was a real challenge, and we'll have to in some cases we'll have to introduce HEPA filtration as maybe in the ductwork, because it's a challenge often to get it into the air handling unit itself. So, we were quick on our feet to jump in and apply various solutions that help the healthcare system at the time. There's other stuff that we did with creating negative isolation rooms. So normal patient room, we would add exhaust fans and connect it to the windows, or we could add it and connect it to the return airflow system as well to create negative pressure room, to create isolation room to treat COVID patients. So, there are many solutions for interim, and those are interim solutions. Those are not in all, because to create true isolation room, you will have to have negative pressure with all the pressure measurement and in all the requirement of a sealed room in order to be truly negative pressure. But we're able to really have those systems quickly installed to help the health system dealing with treating those type of patients in those type of treatment rooms.
You mentioned renovation, and we talked about existing building. It brings us to a very good point. There are some old buildings out there that have inflexible systems, right? What control settings or system upgrades would you recommend are necessary to prevent COVID transmission, virus transmission?
That's one of the main challenges. When you have some of those vintage systems that they're not flexible or nimble enough to really adapt to 100% outside air, there's not much you can do. With respect to ductwork, you might have to go to the ductwork level to add HEPA filtration, and that's possible in some cases. Or you could go to the unitary level, to the room level in which you're treating, and add HEPA filtration. But you have to be careful also, because you have to make sure that the fan could handle those static pressures that you're adding to the system. So there has to be a key collaboration between facility engineer, a balancer, testing and balance engineer, even a commissioning engineer, which we have in our office that helps us really figure out these systems. And controls is such an important part of it, because modifying controls is extremely important if you're going to transform to 100% outside air system as well. And you're changing the normal mode of operation of your building. So the controls is going to be a very important part of ensuring that you have good temperature control within your space. Your control is going to ensure that you have proper negative pressure rooms when it needs to be, because that's how you control the space. So you cannot underestimate the importance of temperature control system and BMS control system alone during this COVID, because it truly played an important role.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention about controls as well, going forward, control is going to be an important solution to make a building pandemic ready, because it has to be a situation in which you're flexible enough to flip a control switch to talk to those type of situations. So that's something that we will definitely be looking at, how we can do that as a future response to this pandemic challenges that we're going to have also in the future.
Yeah, you're exactly right. At the end of the day, right, the end users they don't know how mechanical equipment works, or they're not much knowledgeable. All they have is a control, right? They want to control the air, they want to control the temperature to make the space comfortable. Are there different COVID mitigation applications for new construction, or they're similar to what we're seeing in existing buildings?
So the limitations for existing, it's different. It's the same type of applications, but for new buildings, it's easier to implement. So my favorite clutch during the COVID is HEPA filtration. HEPA filtration filters up to 99.97% of any antibodies or any bacteria, viruses, or any other microorganism within the environmental of care. What the HEPA filtration is able to do is to filter as much of these microorganisms as possible. And to be honest, when it says 99.97, doesn't mean that 0.003 is not filtered. It just means that there's other mechanism in which that's just a standard that in which they want to specify the actual percentage, but it's mostly 100% that's filtered. So HEPA filtration is really for me, one of my clutch and one of the application that I use the most for buildings. And this can be used for existing building and also for new building, but it's easier to implement this in new building, because you can actually select your air handling unit to have a bigger section that you could add HEPA filtration to. That's extremely challenging if you have an existing air handling unit in an existing space where there's no space for you to expand and to add those filter banks to it. So it can be a real challenge for existing building, but for new building, we're seeing that we can easily talk the architects through adding an extra section and getting our rooms marginally bigger than they used to, giving it us. But that's something that we're doing much better. Another application is the application of UV, ultraviolet lights, and that's ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, and those applications are easy when you have new application, because those are actually lights that you install within the air handling unit. Sometimes you use it just to actually sanitize the coils, but during for application of COVID, we can double the light intensity, and that will help to give us a longer a huge kill in terms of the viruses within the system. So that's something that we can implement easily into new design for all the system. It's electrical requirement is really trying to go into an existing air handling unit to take it down, which is serving a whole department that you have to take down to get these system installed. So it's always very challenging for existing system, much easier for the new buildings that we're designing. And and I think for new buildings, this is a no-brainer, and owners are really making quick decisions and asking us to make sure that we implement these type of design strategies, because they want to make sure that their building is ready for the next pandemic, or even ready for the second surge of of COVID if it does come.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the concerns, like when I'm working as a consultant on the cost management, is a budget, right? Owners sometimes have a tight budget. And the question that often is asked is, what are the non-negotiables that
Yes.
has to be done to mitigate the COVID or any airborne disease in the future? So if you would, I know you did provide some mitigation applications and
Yeah.
how we could do, but what are some like a quick list for owners that are non-negotiables?
So one of my, well, so if I think about one of the biggest challenge during the first COVID surge, it's how do we get patients into the hospital, the emergency rooms? How do we get patients, COVID patients, into the hospital? One of the things that I've worked on, with other architects, is really trying to create a way that we can isolate the entrance, which is we have two modes of entrance within the emergency department. And what you can do also as a response to the air system is to compartmentalize that, to ensure that at any time you can actually create a compartment that, for COVID and non-COVID patient. And you can say a pandemic and a non-pandemic mode operation of your ED emergency room. That's something that's extremely important. And you do this by airflow, having good selection of air system, having zone control in terms of having an air handling unit per those zones so that you could control that space easily. And also ensuring those units are 100% outside air. You're able to take that air and throw it back outside and continue to take outside air during those times that you could flip the switch and have 100% outside air for your space. The next non-negotiable, I think, HEPA filtration. Whether we put in HEPA filtration day one, it's up to us, but we want to make sure that we have the racks designed, sized, making sure that the fans are sized for that as well. And that's something that if we don't put in day one, we can have normal MER 14 for day one, but in the pandemic operation, we could quickly and easily modify and change these filtration to meet any airborne type of condition that we experience going forward in the future. One of the next thing that also that I think we have to create a pandemic mode for the hospital. It's what I call a purge. You should be able to purge your building, meaning that you should be able to fully exhaust every space within your building. And that will give you some means of sanitizing that space and getting that space ready and cleaning out that space with the air system. That's going to be combined with cleaning it with cleaning products, but having the air in that space, the ability to take all the air out of your hospital or your ambulatory care facility is going to be extremely important in challenging this pandemic situation that we're experiencing.
Yeah, the healthcare facilities are specialized, designed, and these changes you mentioned, they're not only they will prepare the owners for the future surges we could have at any flu season or any airborne viruses. Are the hospitals ready for surges right now if we get a second hit from the virus? What have you learned from the first?
To be honest, we're not. I don't think we are. The existing system are still going to be struggling. We have created some temporary isolation rooms by we have facility in which we actually built a complete wing in Meritus Healthcare and in Maryland. They have built a complete wing, and that's a patient wing that has negative isolation rooms and have purge mode and have everything that's needed if for the second surge. But the situation is that not all healthcare system. We built that hospital in that wing in 3.5 months, and that was that's a normal construction duration for those type of projects, or a couple of years. So we're able to really escalate and really push that process and give them a a wing that's needed if there's a second surge. But all the hospital system are still struggling. One of the biggest challenge that we had is that they had to decant most of the hospital in terms of what you call elective surgeries during the first surge, and really take out most of those patients and really bring in try to treat COVID patient only in most of those facilities. So that's where most of the challenges. Now you have, I don't think the hospital system is really going to backtrack and do that again because of the billions of dollars they've lost during the first surge. I think they will have to find a way, the happy medium, how to treat non-COVID and COVID patient within the same environment. And that's where the major challenge is. So it's really, there's no separation, in emergency room for patients that's coming in. There's not enough isolation room to intubate and extubate COVID patients. So these are the challenges that's going to be happening. There's not enough ICU beds, for ventilators if that's were to occur. So these are continuous challenges, and that's the reason why they wanted to flatten the curve. That was to really just to reduce the number of inpatient that we have due to the COVID, because the healthcare system is just not built that way to really handle any type of surge with respect to a second surge.
So now when you're talking to owners and healthcare facility management and the managers, the applications you're recommending, are you just seeing them as an interim, or you're recommending them to stop the spread of airborne viruses that we could see in the future?
So, to be honest, there's always the debate, because that CDC didn't release any documentation on COVID-19 being airborne until recently. And this is something, as an engineer and as somebody who's involved in airflow system, and being involved in OR design and those surgical type of spaces, understand the full effect of viruses within the built environment. Based on the transmission, we knew that they're always, they have to be, some form airborne, maybe on the right humidity condition and other environmental condition, but it truly is. But what we wanted to do and what we're doing now is really talk into any airborne challenges that we might have in the future. That's what we're addressing now, because to be honest, if we get a true airborne pandemic, that's where I think that we're going to have more challenges than what we have now. And so we are really designing for this future big airborne pandemic that we haven't seen yet. And, like the measles and stuff, but those are the stuff that we're making sure that our system can handle if we need to handle it in the future.
That transitions right into my next question. Will the pandemic have dramatic changes when it comes to designing new buildings, or do you see it minimal, like tweaks, and then we'll forget about it?
Yeah, so when we look at history and what history says in terms of these huge challenges, we look at instances like 9/11 that changed airport security for the better, and you would think that after it's died down, things is going to be different. No, it didn't. It really intensified, and security and terrorism and everything has to be. We have to protect our country against that. So I think it's going to be the same type of response to this COVID pandemic. And what we're calling it in WSP is we're calling it a new normal. The new normal. So it's not going to be okay back to normal. It's really creating that new normal and really addressing some of the intrinsic challenges that we have in our healthcare system, so that we could be ready, and we could be truly ready for the next pandemic if it does occur.
Good. So we've been focusing on what we have been ignoring for the past. Now we're going to learn from the history.
Yes, absolutely.
I know you sit on various committees for AIA, International Code. I wanted to ask, do you anticipate like any standard coming out that's going to become a new norm? The buildings would have to follow it, or similar to designing, if like you're designing a LEED building, do you anticipate a certification program for infectious diseases in the industry?
So that's a good question, and I want to look at it in two ways. One, I think it should go beyond a certification program. I think it's health and safety and really the protection of it's do no harm. That's what healthcare is about. I think we should go beyond creating a LEED or WELL type of standard. I think we need to address the code, and it's been addressed now. I should tell you that ASHRAE, with American Society of Healthcare Engineers, is working with ASHRAE, and they're going into the specific details and how they're going to address and really pivot to help healthcare system deal with these type of challenges in the future. So they're going in, they're looking at the code, they're looking at the right filtration system, the right type of sanitizing system with respect to whether it's air ionization, whether it's UV lights, and other technology in which could really kill viruses and inactivate viruses so that they don't affect or build environments. So they're looking into it, and there's going to be some change coming that will affect how we do things and how we design. And it's absolutely necessary. I think we just have to make sure that we don't see this as as we do with LEED. LEED is just something that now people just view as you can do it or not. It's up to you. We want to make sure that when we have those standards or those guidelines, we want them to be more standard than guidelines also, because we want them to be implemented, because health and safety is always at risk if we have a system in which we're not ready for something that's similar or something that's worse than what we have experienced during this COVID-19 pandemic.
So you see the overall industry focusing more on healthy living moving forward rather than just sustainability or getting a certification program. The focus would be says for people and a healthy living where people can live. Overall, like the construction industry, do you think it's going to emerge stronger after this pandemic, or it would take some time to rebalance?
It's going to take some time to rebalance, but I think that as professionals and I think our industry is always resilient. So I think we're going to bounce back. I think we're going to bounce back quickly. I think for engineers and for innovations, we've seen how quickly we were thinking on our feet and getting stuff done and using simple innovations to create solutions that was truly mind-boggling. But we did it, and and we were less prepared. So I think now we have the tools. It's about 8 months, 9 months going on. We have global solutions that other countries have used also that we're learning from as well. We're going to come back, I think, pretty quick, but it's going to take a little time, based on economics and the financial challenges that we're going to have. But I think we'll be back soon with respect to where we were in buildings. One of the things that I wanted to add with respect to what we're doing in healthcare, we've actually been advising a lot of commercial buildings and schools, offices about what they can do to minimize minimize transmission. So it's really taking what we have used in healthcare and what we have used in healthcare for many years, and now other industries really want to know how we do it and how we're able to do it. And that's something that I've been talking to a lot of different developers. Even Amazon actually gave a whole presentation to the Amazon design team about how they can design their space to minimize the transmission of COVID or other airborne type of viruses. So this is other industries really learning from us, from the healthcare industry as well. And that's something that I think that's going to continue. A lot of schools are doing HEPA filtrations now, and that's something that they're installed in all their their schools, and restaurants are doing it with both HEPA and UV lights. So other industries is really catching on and really trying to protect themselves, for any future challenges that might occur.
Yeah, healthcare facilities were always ahead in design and thinking forward because patient safety was their first priority. But now I think these design systems or design applications that you've been recommending would transition to even workplace environment or restaurants where people can be comfortable going there and being happy, not worrying about the transmission or the airflow. So looking back a few months, have the events of 2020 affected your daily work more, less, about as much as you expected?
So, consider I'm talking more on Zoom and Microsoft, all communication, video communication protocols I've used. I think I became much more savvy in that platform. We've transitioned to virtual working since March. And as I was explaining to you earlier, I think I've been in the office maybe twice since this pandemic. But to be honest, I haven't skipped a beat in terms of serving my clients and really serving projects on a whole. I've been more involved in the thought leadership as well with respect to writing articles and really speaking about COVID and how we can combat this this massive challenge that we're encountering now. But for me, I think it really stimulate the part of the brain that wants to find a solution and help the industry find a solution and something that's truly lasting, that we can really turn the corner to say, we have been a part of that response that really helped us to really shape this better normal that we're about to create for our children and their children afterwards.
You talked about children and technology. This brings up a good question. What word of advice do you have for young engineers coming out of school, starting their professional lives? What would you recommend them?
And that's I just spoke to there's a school for gifted, and there was about 15 kids, and they were 14 and 15 and were so smart. It blew me away completely. I'm like, what are we teaching this generation? So you have, they're on the right step, making, the right decision in respect to learning. But as looking back, my view of science was always how I view solutions. It's looking at the physics of things and really trying to figure out how do we put together stuff in that if it's a chemical reaction that we can use to really solve a problem, which they're doing in labs now to really find finding the vaccine for COVID. So it's really concentrating on the sciences and really be have innovation as an important part of how you think, and that's the thought process that I continue to challenge younger engineers, is that be open-minded and be ready to be flexible and nimble and be ready to pivot, because that's important. And it's not only learning technical aspects that's important, but it's also to aspect of engineering that's also important. It's about relationship. It's about working with clients. It's about working with people on a whole. So that's something that you have to be a part of. You can't be just in your book and think that that's the solution. It's really a combination of many different facets. So that's my.
I absolutely agree with you, and it's like I tell youngsters, like, we're engineers, but our goal is to solve problems. We need to understand the problem first. We need to understand, like, what are we solving for and who are we solving for? If you can't understand that, the book, like, just the books won't help you. Sometimes you have to think about innovation. And every building we work on, owners and developers want it different. The end user is different. And you have to picture it all together to make it work. If you can't do that, then you won't be a good engineer. But yeah, I totally agree with you, and I like your advice. I know you're authored some books. You're a published author. Can you share some insights from the book you recently published?
Yeah, so I I think that's one of my, I think the best thing I've ever done is actually wrote a book called Get the Youth's Bible, and it's an inspirational book that really it's I call it a roadmap for people from the inner city, or where I call it the ghetto community, to really help them to navigate the challenges that might encounter in their life growing up. I went through it. I actually didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have any document that would narrative that could to tell me how to make decisions and how to really navigate poverty to reach where I am in life. So this book is really directed to younger folks with itself and really teach them how to overcome challenges and show them how when you lose, that doesn't mean you're defeated. That's something that I truly believe in, is that you learn from your challenges. I call it you fail forward. So every experience that you go through, whether it's good or bad, you really learn from that experience. And that's what my book teaches. I have something that I call the 10 Commandments of Get the Youth's Bible. That's the name of the book, the Get the Youth's Bible, because I'm from the ghetto. And it's really looking at mentorship, looking at continuous learning. It's looking at entrepreneurship. And I actually ended on my last commandment is thou shalt pay it forward. And that means like for me, give back as much as you can. For me, if I didn't have mentors and other older folks who invested in me, they didn't have to. So that's something that's an important part of my life, that I always try to give back to my community. And I have my own nonprofit organization called DTR Foundation, in which we do mentorship. I do it, especially now during this pandemic. I'm doing it by Zoom. So I'm mentoring folks both here in Maryland and also back in Jamaica. Kids, and they're excited to really hear positive messages. And that's what I'm trying to do with my foundation. I also adopted a hospital in Jamaica called Sablema Public General Hospital, in which we do projects every year up to $10,000 we try to contribute as part of the foundation. Really challenges during this COVID, but we have given care packages to nurses and some of those staff that's been tremendous during this COVID pandemic. But it's something that's an important part of me, and to pay it forward is always something that's going to be an important part of my life for years to come.
No, I totally, I'm impressed, like what you're giving back to the community in a way. I know I've seen you like giving books back to I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm from the hood too. I had to learn it hard way, and I tell people, like, I did not get here. I was lucky to have good bosses and mentors who, when I asked a question, guided me to the right way, gave me the right direction. And I think that plays an important role what you do out of your life. And it's important that we give back to our community and to the youngsters out there, guide them. And I'm impressed. I do need to get your book and read it. Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on for our audience, or did I get enough questions?
I think you did, and I think to address the current, it's not an elephant in the room. It's bigger than an elephant. That the COVID challenges that we're going through. I think it's really a testament, to our resolve that we're able to really respond in the right way and to flatten the curve and really provide engineering response to something that we've never experienced in this in our lifetime. So I think it's kudos to the healthcare staff, to the healthcare professionals, to the designers and architects and contractors out there who are doing, who are going beyond their normal daily duties to really provide solutions that will be lasting and will serve us in this better normal that we're trying to create.
Yes, they are our heroes. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate you taking the time and talking to me. And I learned a lot from this, and I hope my audience does too. And looking forward to having you back maybe sometimes later and talking more about this. This is a deep topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Zair. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And I just wanted to jump back in, gentlemen, and thank you both for your time today, taking the time to talk with us. I think we provided a lot of really interesting solutions for owners and developers as we navigate this pandemic and really thinking about the future and how we're going to combat future airborne viruses and what that looks like. So thank you both. This conversation will be ongoing, I'm sure, as the months and who knows, years, hopefully not continue, but thank you both. Took a lot of your time, but I think the audience got to learn quite a bit and I got to hear some new perspectives. So thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of Construction Insiders, we encourage you to check out our website at www.ccorpusa.com. That's ccorpusa.com, where you can find our full knowledge library under the Insights tab. It's all great stuff, we're really passionate about it, and we hope you'll check it out. Thanks for listening.